great to have you back on the screen, Savvy Cat Anna from Savvy Cat Realty, OLP. Glad to see you this morning. What's been going on for you? What's happening in the world of Portuguese real estate?
Yeah, this time it feels like we had a really good big interval. It was like February, almost the first of the day, and now we are having like the 5th of April. So it almost feels like it was two months since we spoke.
Yeah.
And a lot happened during last month, and the whole election thing. I know that you shared some things about it too.
Oh, yes.
But yeah, I'd love to make my own commentary on that.
Go on, please do. Tell us what you think.
Okay, so what I think, and I did make a video about it too, is that the Portuguese people are quite saturated of the current system. So, as you know, the current system is basically that the people elect the deputies. There are about 248 deputies, and it's according to population density. So locations like Lisbon elect, I think it's 48 deputies. And then you have locations like Bragança that only elect 2 deputies. So what happens is in a lot of low density territories, it's even common that the location doesn't even elect any deputies, and it's also common that people vote and those votes end up counting for nothing because they didn't elect a deputy. And about 10% of the votes in Portugal, this happens. So there are 2 things that are happening right now. So the main parties that used to be PS and PSD, and PSD formed a coalition to form the Iniciativa Liberal, so the EL party. It's EL, right? Yeah, I think so. They kind of always were the big ones, and the conversation has always been that they are the 2 only viable parties. Like, you cannot get another party to power. And the system is kind of rigged in that way, and it's very hard for small parties to grow. And it's actually been proposed to change the system, but never approved, because of course it was not in the best interest of the 2 main parties who holds the biggest number of deputies. So what happened this year was revolutionary in a way, because for the first time we had a third party that had weight in the game. And it's not like they had majority or anything close to it. I believe they had like 18%, something like that. They ended up with, I don't know how many deputies, but 30 something, close to 40. No, it was less.
I think it was a bit more than that, wasn't it? Wasn't it 48 by the end of it?
I don't know, because I don't think it was that many. Okay. But I know that the PS and PSD, they ended up with 74 or 75 and 77, something like that. So they still had a majority with a very small difference. So the AL, the coalition, won only by 2 deputies. So although they have the right to rule, it is by a very, very, very small margin.
Yeah.
So things are not exactly very stable. And the Chega, which is kind of the talk of the moment, they kind of made this huge thing about how they won and etc. etc. And it was in a way a historic okay, there you go, 40 something, 48.
We've got the actual results on the screen now. Absolutely right on the PSD-PS split, with 80 seats to PSD and the AD Alliance, 78 to PS. So yeah, just 2 seats in it, and then 50. It was 48, and then with the final counting, it went up to 50 seats there for Chega. But I think your point stands, doesn't it? That they've made quite an impression, but probably not enough to be that influential.
Yes, so a lot of people, and we even received messages from people saying that are no longer considering Portugal because the far right is gaining power.
Seriously,
yes,
okay, right.
They are gaining power, but they don't have any power to make any relevant changes. So if they want to approve things, they still need to get it through Parliament. and they don't have anywhere close to the majority in parliament, so they won't be able to approve anything extreme. And the truth is that their program, it actually had a lot of good things from the economic side. Of course, from the cultural and social side, I'm not going to comment. But from the economic side, they did have a lot of positive proposals. And I believe what is happening is that it's just saturation, because people, most of the Portuguese people, feel that the PS and PSD are extremely corrupt, both of them. People no longer trust either of them. And this was just a stand of people saying, like, we don't want you anymore.
Funnily
And
enough, the name Shaker means enough, doesn't it? And that's
yeah,
exactly what was being said, right? We've had enough of this,
yeah,
so we're basically going to do a protest vote.
yeah. And Chega and André Ventura, the leader of Chega, is very good at making noises. So he is always in the mouth of the public, and he's always having controversial opinions. And as you know, there is no such thing as bad publicity. Like, everyone is talking about him, everyone knows him.
Yes.
And his campaign was very much anti the two main parties, too. Of course, there's a lot of other things in the middle of that, but I believe that a lot of people voted for Chega because they were just tired of PS and PSD. It's not.
Yep.
I won't say that we don't have far right believers in Portugal, maybe even 20% of Portugal, but I don't believe it will be for a lot more than that. I don't believe that if they vote for the ideology, I don't believe that the far right would win. I very much believe at this point was just a saturation.
I
And
agree with you, and it's not an unknown pattern around the world, is it? This is happening all over the place and happens historically in cycles. And I think we have to be really. There's so much interesting stuff. I find this fascinating, Anna. So thank you for bringing it to the table this morning, as it were. You know, I completely agree with you that it's a frustration vote. And people have felt thwarted, and it's like it would appear to be their only option to have an outburst of that kind. And it's a very blunt tool, isn't it, to use your vote to have an outburst every few years. There are probably other ways of changing society that are a little bit more practical and hands-on, and you know, maybe people take more personal responsibility than having an outburst at the ballot box like that. But I do understand it as well. I'm surprised to hear people saying they're not coming to Portugal anymore because of the far right. And I find that really lazy. That you know that
I
phrase.
understand the fear. I mean, there's a lot of people that want to move to Portugal also from a safety perspective.
Yes.
And with a far right having a firmer stand here, I understand how they might feel threatened. But like I said, I don't think that we have a majority of the population that agrees with those ideologies, because the truth is far right is very much about creating conflict and pointing fingers. So generally the structure, the strategy is very much pointing out everything that's wrong and criticizing things and finding scapegoats, so to say, for the justifying certain problems, but they rarely present viable solutions. So that's something that generally annoys me with the far right parties. Their solutions tend to be, let's exclude everyone. Like, how you should know historically that doesn't work very well. But it's still the case. Like, the far right, and the truth is, we have a very real problem right now. That is the housing crisis.
Yes.
The housing costs are not sustainable from an internal Portuguese perspective, and people are unhappy. People are frustrated.
Yeah, I totally
So it's
understand.
very easy to appeal to their anger.
Yes. Yeah. No question about that. Pam saying, yeah, 20%. Your estimation there, and I think the reason I'm saying it's lazy. Erica K saying it's not lazy. It's because Ventura reminds Americans of Trump. I get that emotional reaction.
Yeah, and I agree with that.
Yeah, but we're not
It's
going
the
to
same
get
kind
very
of
far, are we?
discourse, pretty much.
If all we're going to have in politics is emotional triggering, we're not going to get much housing stock built. We're just going to end up with endless emotional battles endless emotional ideological battles that don't actually amount to anything. And I think that's part of what you're saying here, isn't it? Is despite all the noise and the rhetoric and the frustration, the actual problems that politics is meant to solve are not actually happening, and that's why Portuguese people are frustrated by
Yes.
what's going on.
But I was actually positively surprised that neither of the parties actually went for a coalition with Chega. I'm not fan of either PS or PSD for the same reason as most Portuguese.
Yes.
But I actually really like the way that the PS leader spoke. He was a very practical, and I'm a very practical person. But
Yes.
although I don't really like the party, but
But you were
but
interested in what he was saying, right? So you
yeah,
said to
I
this
agree with what
your
he was
yeah,
saying. He
yeah,
wasn't trying to embellish things and making it seem better than what they were. He was just like, okay, this is how things are, and we have to deal with it. I
yes,
agree.
yeah.
And on the other hand, the leader from PSD, that is currently não é iniciativa.
With what AD are
I
you
can't
talking
remember the name. I said it's Iniciativa Liberal, but it's not. It's a different name. It's AD.
There's
So
AD, that's right, the
yeah,
Democratic Alliance, not to be confused with
Democratic. Yeah.
the other
So yeah, EL is a small party.
Yeah,
But either way, the leader of PSD, that is currently the leader of AD, he's a top on politicians. He's the kind
right.
that makes a very, very long discourses, making it say like everything is okay even when it's not.
Yes.
And I was rather worried that he would go for a coalition with Chega, and positively surprised that he didn't, because I actually don't trust that person at all. So
Right. Okay. We've got Liz F. Hello. Good morning. Sorry, but whatever percentage of far right voting is terrifying. What do you mean, Liz F. by far right? Exactly. They are not about solutions. They just want to stir things up. Yeah, and that's one of the dynamics, isn't it, of politics? When people feel that they're not represented, things tend to go to the margins. Are people equally concerned about far left, I wonder, as well? It's dismissive to say I'm not dismissing anything. I'm talking about it, Erica. That's just my opinion. Women's rights have been diminished under Trump. I don't know about that. I don't live in America, and I don't doubt you for 1 minute. Who do the politicians represent, the people or the corporate unelected types? And perhaps that's what you're referring to with the malaise in the middle of the PSD, PS swamp, I guess. Well, no, that's an emotive word as well, isn't it? No, the two cheeks of the same political backside that we also see in centrist politics all over the world. People get frustrated, don't they, because things aren't happening, and there seems to be corruption in that stale center. And what happens as a reaction to that is you get far right and far left ideologies and suggestions, lots of political rhetoric, stirring, triggering, emotional outbursts, but not much
yes, but
action.
yeah, one of the things that gave Chega this much visibility is exactly because a big part of the problems they point their fingers to, and the persons they point their fingers to, are things that are close to the Portuguese people's heart, and that makes the Portuguese people frustrated in general. So they were able to make that emotional appeal to a lot of people.
Yep.
And yeah, I guess it's work. Is it right? No, I don't believe that a lot of I don't agree with their social politics at all. But that doesn't diminish the fact that a lot of the things they point out to are true.
And what we need to remember, one is this is democracy at work, isn't it? It's no good not liking democracy anymore because you don't like the result. What stands out for me with the Portuguese election, and I'm not a big fan of sort of centrist politics and centralized politics. I'm not a fan of those things. But what I can appreciate about what happened, relatively speaking, in Portugal, was that democracy was seen to be done in a better way than many other countries, because the thing we're complaining about, the lack of working together, is a symptom of democracy, isn't it? It's people voting for what they wanted to vote for, which means you get a mix of ideas.
Yes, and
And
people have different ideas and different ideologies, and that's part of being human, I guess.
exactly. And then with Shager in Parliament, what I think people need to remember, and how perhaps people might calm down about it. And again, I'm not diminishing people's strong feelings about it. That's just happening anyway. But these ideas have to go through Parliament, don't they, in Portugal? It's not like because they've got 50 seats, they've got that they can just have what they want to happen.
Yes,
They
I
have to
don't believe
talk
that
about their ideas.
at the moment they would be able to get anything extreme approved at all.
No,
And
because it
that
needs to
would
be talked about.
probably even make them lose popularity. So it wouldn't be
Yes,
a good move for them.
right.
But I think there's an interesting dynamic happening right now that may be positive. Let's see how it unfolds.
Yeah.
That is, the two main parties are desperate to get trust again and to get visibility again. They understand they are losing power. So I am curious to see how they respond and if they will be making positive changes. And the coalition, it was made with PSD, and I think it was, I don't know if it was 3 or 4 small parties. Some of them, it's curious because it has like a monarchic party, and then there was like a liberal party, and it was a whole mix. I think most of those parties was kind of at the end of the race and just joined in. So I'm curious also to see how this coalition, if they will also have actual new ideas and new proposals that end up being positive, if because of this mix of small parties that got thrown into there, because they are all over the place. And like I was saying, I did say like the way that the PS approached the subject and how realistic he was.
Yes.
So I'm curious to see how this dynamic will work, because Chega is gaining power, and they may or may not gain more power. And a lot of people are seeing like, how can they be worse than the ones that are there right now? I think that may be a dangerous way of thinking, but it's also true that we've had this system for like way too long and nothing has been changing. So I understand how people are just like, we need something to change.
In this year of all years, the 50th anniversary of the Carnation Revolution. What an amazing time in Portugal's political history. Absolutely. So, but having said all of that, Anna, what do you think will actually happen?
So, like I said, it will go one of two ways. Either the AD actually manages to make something positive and regain some confidence and stay in power, or it will crumble because it has too small of a percentage of advantage, and they still need to go through Parliament to get things done.
Yes.
And I don't know how Shiga will react, because they kind of feel like sore losers that may just make things harder just for the sake of making things harder. So I'm curious to see how that will go.
Yes.
But either way, either the one of those parties gains trust and makes good policies and improve things, or Chega will continue to grow power, and they continue to show that the other ones aren't working. So the only alternative to this would be if a third party would appear that has different proposals, but I think that's very, very hard to happen.
Right. Okay. And in the meantime, it will just be the slog, won't it, of political life in Portugal, which is consensus politics, right? An uneasy alliance at the moment that will be talking policies through and turning them into law. And what we can be sure of, I suppose, is that there will be a lot of heated debate and discussion about anything that comes before the Parliament now, and that's a good thing democratically, isn't it?
Yeah, I think that, like I said, this was kind of a revolutionary result, and it can lead to positive change.
Yeah.
Let's see how things unfold.
Let's see. I'm not entirely positive when I think about my views and experience of politicians, but we shall see. We shall see what's happened, because it certainly is a change. We spent a lot of time talking about Portuguese politics, and I guess we should, because it's quite important, especially when people say to you, we're reconsidering Portugal because of Chega's popularity, for example. What have you said to those people?
Well, we understand. We are not going to force them to change their mind. It's their own feelings. They cannot come here if they don't feel comfortable, and I'm not
Correct.
in favor of that at all. So I just put up the video explaining the way I view things, but of course, people are free to have their own way of thinking about things.
Yeah.
But yeah, I believe that at the moment we are not anywhere close to having a far right power or significant power or any drastic policies.
Yeah.
But
I can't see that
it's
happening here.
not sure how things are going to evolve.
Yeah, yeah. I just cannot see that happening here, and I would ask. I'm a bit more I'm a bit more excited about the proposition of talking to those people, perhaps. Like, no, think again. Like, I can understand your first reaction, but think
Mm,
again. Don't let that put you off. Seriously. But anyway, as you say, that's their business and up
mm.
to them what they do. Another way you're helping them, of course, is the new webinar that's coming up. You've got a Let's Talk About Moving to Portugal webinar. What's going to be going on in that, Anna?
Yeah, it's very much just making an overview of how the process is for those of you who are considering this and have your concerns. We are going to talk about cost of life, different cities, how the process works, the things you have to worry about, also the political situation. So at the end, we're all just going to take a Q&A and hear everyone's individual questions
Wonderful.
and try to answer them as to the best of our ability. Of course, we won't be making a personalized consult in the public forum, but we will try to give as much answers as we can and see how people are reacting. Because, like I said, I've been having receiving contacts about people's worries, and I understand that. And the best way to figure them out is talking about them.
Absolutely. I think that's the answer to everything, isn't it? Is communication and sharing what's on your mind and seeing what can happen in the power of conversation. So let's talk about moving to Portugal. That's a webinar with the Q&A that Anna mentioned there. Is this one free?
Yes, it's free.
Okay. And it's happening on May the 7th, and the countdown has begun on that. So what else is new at SavvyCat HQ? Any other new areas in
I
Portugal?
am trying very hard to launch a new website that was supposed to be ready in the middle of January, and it's driving me crazy because the development I hired outsourced the development, and they are just so delayed. But yes.
Right. Okay. Is there anything we can do to help?
I think that's the most thing that people need to get used to in Portugal. And even for me, as a Portuguese person that is generally accounting for delays, it's still extremely frustrating.
and
Because it is just so the norm. Every time I need to do something in Portugal, it never is ready on time. It drives me nuts.
yes. Yeah. Well, fair enough. We can say it's even driving a Portuguese person distraction. The delays on the new SavvyCat Realty website. Is the launch of the website also the launch of new services or things we can tell people about here?
Yeah, we are considering some new services, but they are not ready yet. So one of the things that I am currently studying is the possibility to have services specifically for development. So for people that are looking to make renovations or new constructions, but even if they don't buy with us, to have the possibility to have us assist during the process. But I haven't fully worked out the pricing and so on, because honestly, that is probably going to be fairly costly, because that is one of the most heavy works that we have. So it's a lot of work, to work with the renovations and work with, especially with licensings and so on. So
Mm.
it takes a lot of time, and it involves a lot of research. So that I'm still working out the details on that. But of course, it would be very good to understand the demand. I've had requests for that before, but of course, if anyone is thinking in that, I would love to get some feedback on the demand on the market for that service.
Okay, excellent. And they can reach out to you via the current website, presumably,
Yes.
and get in touch.
The URL will be the same once the new website is ready. It's just not
Yes.
ready.
Oh, and look, since we've been talking to you, which I think is probably for 2 or 3 years now, isn't it? Did you open your cool medieval bar, Savvy Cat? That was a
No, I
fantastic.
actually I passed down that business to a friend of mine, and the person who is currently running it's called. She changed its name. It's called Caldeirão Lendário, and
Right.
she's doing fairs and has an online shop and that sort of thing. I'm not opposed to the idea of opening a bar, but I just been having my hands full with the Savvy Cat, so I just don't have the
Yeah,
energy
I
to
mean,
have a bar.
I don't think you can open a bar and not expect a little bit of extra work there. So yeah, definitely. Savvy Cat Bar sounds a good name for a bar as well. But okay, so maybe that's on the back burner, and your friend is taking care of business to a certain extent there. I always love to talk to you about, because you help people, scout locations, of course, and you suggest places to them that they might not otherwise be aware of in the
Yeah,
journey.
and I think that's a big thing because a lot of people come. Of course, many of them come and make a bigger exploration trip, like for 2 weeks and go a bit all over the country. But
Mm,
that does give you more of a superficial idea, and you can see some things, but they will always be so very superficial, and it's very different to talk to an actual local who will give you some input of how it is to actually live there.
yes.
And the that's just the thing. People have different needs, and a lot of people, I think most people, when they have that initial idea, many of them think mostly of Porto and Lisbon, and many
Mm.
of them then don't even know of the other cities. And Portugal has so much to offer, and generally, when it comes to cost of life, you are much better off in other cities.
So come on, what's hot? What's hot right now? This is what I love to ask you: is where
Yeah,
are
I
these new towns?
recently, like it was 2 weeks ago, we released a video on the 10 cheapest cities in Portugal. And I actually did some research before I released that video, and I was surprised that many of the suggestions, they aren't really cheap cities. Like a lot of articles were suggesting like Aveiro, Portimão,
Not cheap anymore. No way. I've heard
and
of not
what
cheap.
was it, Santarém, and there was a bunch of cities, not Santarém, Setúbal, Santarém is still okay, but they were Caldas de Rainha. All of these cities are nice cities, but you cannot say they are cheap cities.
Not anymore. You can't. 2 years ago. So between you and me, then, where is what made the cut for your
Yeah, so the first one was Castelo Branco, which
Yep.
curiously have stayed on the one of the cheapest ones. Then we have Chaves, and I have that written down here somewhere, but I don't remember by
Send people
heart.
to the website. They can find that at the website, can't they? But that's interesting to hear. Castelo Branco is a
Yeah, and
fantastic.
we are probably going to, because many of these were just cities that I popped out of my head. Like I know that these cheap cities are going to be affordable, but and then I just checked with our own system the current prices and so on, and put them in order. But I also just asked my team to make a more in-depth comparison, making like the 20 top cities, make that in a blog post, so it's easy to compare. And we have the NMLS like system that we have access to,
Cool.
and just giving the averages of rent and buying cost, so people have kind of a comparison on that.
Very
But yeah, I was thinking here what else made the cut. I don't exactly remember, but I
Well, we've
like I
got
said,
the
I have
website
a
address.
list
So
of
we've run out of
websites.
time as well, Anna. Look, we've got busy
Yeah,
talking about politics, and we, we did manage to
there is
talk
a lot
about
of
your
things
webinar.
happening politics.
Well, yeah. Savvy Cat Realties, I'm sure, where people can get access to your list of cities that are worth looking at, which is always great information. So thank you very much for that. That's savvycatrealty.com, which will be replaced by a new website sometime. And
Hopefully in the next month.
all right, the link for the webinar that's coming up in May as well. Let's talk about moving to Portugal. Absolutely free, and you can talk to Anna and team members on that webinar. That was the 7th of May. That's 4 p.m. Lisbon time, so New Yorkers will be able to watch that with their brunch at 11 a.m. and Los Angeles 8 a.m. So it's a breakfast show webinar about moving to Portugal in the company of SavvyCap. Always great talking to you. Good to see you. It has felt like a long time, hasn't it? Thanks for your political update. Any nice plans for the weekend here in Portugal?
No, we have the eclipse, so I'm actually going to an event about the eclipse.
Are you? Is it a public event or is it a private?
No, it's a private thing.
Oh, okay.
It's kind of astrology related.
Right. Okay. So yes, from a Wiccan point of view, I guess it's pretty significant, isn't it? The eclipse on Monday. So enjoy that, Anna, and we'll see you again soon. Thank you so much for being here.